Welcome to Slaughterhouse Stories. I hope you enjoy the stories I have for you tonight. Hello to all you things that go bump in the night. Hello to all you humans as well. Welcome to the show that brings you creepypastas, short scary stories, and dark horror-themed poetry from all across the world. This is the Slaughterhouse Stories Podcast, Episode 40, Eyes as Black as Night. I'm your host and narrator, Ghost Train, telling you to lock your doors, get under your blanket, and keep the lights on. You can find the links to all my socials in the show notes. Come and discuss all things spooky with me. Also, you can write in and have your email read on the show. Email slaughterhousestoriespodcast@gmail.com with creepypasta requests, stories you've written, or your own real-life paranormal encounters. Before we get to tonight's first story, I'd like to ask you a favor. If you're enjoying the show, please head over and leave a review through iTunes and help spread the word to your friends, family, the black-eyed children in your house, whomever. Tell them, be a listener, not a victim. Now, let's get spooky. To start things off tonight, let me first say, welcome to spooky season, everyone. Now some of us, like me, we roll spooky 365, but I get it. Not everyone can dress like death and be down with the devil. But still, break out the decorations in horror movies. 'Tis the season to be spooky. And since it is spooky season, all month long, the main feature of the show will be a Halloween-themed story. And tonight, I have 2 trips to Halloween for you. But first, let's travel to the UK and visit what is supposed to be the most haunted woods in Britain. And let's hear about some of the terrifying things that took place there. Step into the screaming woods with me. Lean back, get comfortable, and enjoy the Daring Woods. The Daring Woods, also known as Screaming Woods, are situated in Kent, between the villages of Smarden and Pluckley. They were reputed to be the most haunted woods in Britain, and they were given their name because of the many reports of people hearing terrifying screams coming from the forest at night, or footsteps and whispers during days of fog. The forest is said to be haunted by the ghosts of the people who get lost in them. In particular, the locals mention a suicidal army colonel of the 18th century and a highwayman who was captured by the villagers, pinned to a tree and beheaded. Many from the nearby villages swear to have seen black shadows following them while they were traveling across the forest. The wood is also famous for presenting one of the oldest Neolithic sites in the world.
Scientific research.
British physicist B. Josephson has studied the phenomenon for years during his research at Cavendish Laboratory for the Mind-Matter Unification Project, documenting everything in the peer-reviewed paper, Quantitative Measurement of Decoherence, a link between consciousness and group theoretic characterization of hyperplanes of existence. In a recent interview, he criticized the skeptic approach of many scientists. The trouble is that the scientific community is not aware of these results, because very little of this work is published in journals like Nature and Science, and the work is often ridiculed when it is published in respectable physics journals. He cites the examples of a paper on quantum mechanics by Henry Stapp of the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory that contained a reference to parapsychology physicists have an emotional response when they hear anything connected with parapsychology, he says. Their opinion of parapsychology research is not based on evaluation of the evidence, but on a dogmatic belief that all research in this field is false.
The daring Wood Massacre.
The woodland has been the center of attention for this phenomenon for many years. On the morning of November 1st, 1948, 20 people from the Maltmans area were found dead, 11 of whom were children. The bodies were forming a massive pile of human flesh, and they didn't present any wound. Many reported seeing strange lights coming from the forest on the night of Halloween, when the massacre took place. The autopsies couldn't determine the cause of death, and after a few weeks, the local authorities quickly ended the investigation, stating that the cause was carbon monoxide poisoning. This behavior raised questions about a possible involvement of the police in the matter at the time. In 1964, private investigator Robert Collins conducted in-depth witness interviews designed to uncover hints about the alleged activity of an unknown religious cult in the village of Smarden. His research stopped after he died in a tragic car accident the following year. The daring wood was home for another mystery when on October 1998, on the same night of 50 years before, 4 college students who were visiting the forest went missing after people from Pluckley reported seeing figures of light similar to spider webs in the sky. Their bodies were never found, and after 3 weeks, the police investigation stopped. What do you think, human? Would you like to take a stroll through the screaming woods? I'm sure you'll be fine. And if not, well, at least your family won't see what happened to your body. But before you go into the woods, let me move to the next story of the night. This one, written by Savannah K. Davis, is about a woman named Kat, just enjoying a movie and some popcorn, when a thud at her door brings her back to reality. Where did the thuds come from? What is going on? Settle in, relax, and find out with me as you listen to Let Me
In.
Kat sat alone on her couch, shoveling popcorn in her mouth. She stared at her TV, tied to the suspense of the movie. The sky darkened as the sun approached the horizon. Hidden behind the ocean of trees her house lay among, one lone tree stood in the center of her yard, visible through the living room window. A menacing presence filled the area, yet to make itself known. Kat was glued to her movie, but still able to catch a glimpse of the black object aimed at her door. Thud. Kat jumped, startled by the unexpected disturbance, spilling the popcorn. What the hell? She whimpered, approaching the door. The doorknob was cold in her hand. Her heart pounded in her chest. The hinges squeaked as the door cracked open. A rush of cold air washed Kat's face as her eyes scanned the dim yard. Nothing could be seen. Nothing made a sound. She slowly shut the door, then cleaned up the popcorn. She had just sat down when another black object hit her door with a louder thud than before. She looked at the tree in the yard and was certain she saw what threw it. Kat sat there watching the tree, waiting for something to happen. It's just some kids, she thought. Nothing to worry about. She quickly made herself comfortable and began to turn on another movie. Minutes passed, and another thud shattered the silence, shaking the door. Kat raced for the lock and quickly shut the blinds. They'll go away, she said, but grabbed a knife to calm her nerves and give her a sense of security. Tap, tap, tap. She heard light pecking on the living room window. The pecking grew louder, faster. She froze there in place, staring at the windows as the tapping became more profound. She was afraid to investigate, but brave enough to stand her ground. Her home was small, and every hiding place would be too predictable. Besides, she didn't want to hide. She wanted to see it coming, instead of cowering in fear. The tapping suddenly stopped. Kat slowly made her way to the door and put her back to it. A shadow eclipsed the light from the window atop the door. She stood just out of sight, holding her breath, with her back pressed against the wood. She could feel it knocking 3 times softly. Kat could hear the galloping beat of her heart in her head. Her anxiety raised to the peak. 3 more knocks at the door, harder this time. "Let me in." A hoarse whisper slipped through the door and into Kat's ears. She bit her lip, tears filling her eyes. Another 3 knocks erupted, furious now. "Let me in," a now angry voice ordered. The knocking didn't cease. It grew louder as the voice grew louder. "Let me in! Let me in! Let me in!" The knocking grew so fierce it could have shattered the door. Tears leaked from her eyes. "What do I do?" she thought. "Should I open the door?" The knocking was more than she could bear. "I know you're in there, Kat," it said. Her stomach twisted. Her breath caught in her throat, and tears now streamed down her face. "Go away," she shouted finally. "Let me in," it screamed in response. "Leave me alone," she cried. The voice and the knocking echoed in her head, making her more nauseous than before. Reaching for the lock hesitantly, she sucked up her tears and held her breath, unlocking the door and throwing it open. Nothing was there. The tree stood in the yard, unmoving, no wind, nothing. She shut the door, shaking in fear. With the click of the lock, the room grew cold. Goosebumps covered her skin. A voice whispered behind her,
"Thank you for letting me in."
Poor Kat, just trying to enjoy her night, but she let him in. Maybe she should have kept the door closed and called the police, but really, it would have ended the same way. Just remember, human, when the thud hits your door, don't make them wait. Open the door right away. While you wait for the thud to hit your door, let me give you this week's recommendation. In honor of spooky season being here, all of my recommendations this month will have a Halloween theme to them as well. So this week I'm recommending the movie Halloween. Not the original one that I've recommended before, but rather the 2018 movie. Laurie Strode comes to her final confrontation with Michael Myers, the masked figure who has haunted her since she narrowly escaped his killing spree on Halloween night 4 decades ago. This movie wipes out everything that happened after the first movie and undoes a lot of the bad that happened in this franchise. So be like Kat, get some popcorn, put on the movie Halloween, and hope you can finish without someone killing you. Now that I've given you this week's recommendation, let's take a trip down open mic night at Beelze Pub. Welcome, fiends, to open mic night at Beelze Pub, where we invite you to sit right here and go into the more poetic side of fear. Poems of murder, creatures, and ghosts. All the things that scare you the most. Tonight at the pub, we have the return of H.P. Lovecraft, with one of his more popular poems that also brings that Halloween theme. And then, a poem inspired by The Walking Dead that has a couple just wanting to be safe from this disease. Let the verses grab you, the rhymes pull you, and enjoy Halloween in a suburb, and good night, love. The steeples are white in the wild moonlight, and the trees have a silver glare. Past the chimneys high see the vampires fly, and the harpies of upper air that flutter and laugh and stare. For the village dead to the moon outspread, never shone in the sunset's gleam, but grew out of the deep that the dead years keep, where the rivers of madness stream, down the gulfs to a pit of dream. A chill wind weaves through the rows of sheaves, in the meadows that shimmer pale, and comes to twine where the headstones shine, and the ghouls of the churchyard wail, for harvests that fly and fail. Not a breath of the strange grey gods of change, that tore from the past its own, can quicken this hour when a spectral power spreads sleep over the cosmic throne, and looses the vast unknown. So here again stretch the veil and plain, that moons long forgotten saw, and the dead leap gay in the pallid ray, sprung out of the tomb's black maw, to shake all the world with awe. and all that the morn shall greet forlorn, the ugliness and the pest of rose where thick rises the stones and brick, some day shall be with the rest, and brood with the shades unblessed. Then wild in the dark let the lemurs bark, and the leprous spires ascend, for new and old alike in the fold of horror and death are penned, for the hounds of time to rend. Look out the window, love, at what the world used to be. It was green and alive and beautiful like you, and had color and love and light. Look out the door, love, at what the world is now. It is dead and awful, like our souls, now that we have nothing left to live for. Look in my eyes, love, at what our life has become. It is silent and gone and forgotten, like the dead that wander the earth as I speak. Be silent, dear, all is well. The silence that rests on the world, like a blanket, in the night, and it is time to fall asleep. I dream of anything you can imagine. Be without voice, dear, all is fine. The quiet is eerie and lays in the air, like a gag, in the darkness, and it's time to close your eyes and dream of a heaven to be in. Be alone, dear, all is okay. The nothingness that stops you from speaking, like a shadow, in the black, and it is time to pass on and dream of the afterlife I'll meet you in. Now that you're gone, my life is nothing, and I hold your hand and weep. Your eyes still open, smile still lingering, still saying goodbye. Now that you're gone, my life is at ease, and I hold pictures and weep. My eyes glance around, my smile returning, and I realize a simple solution. Now that you're gone, my life will be taken, and I hold the gun that I killed you with and weep. My eyes meet yours, my smile sad, and hold the machine to my head. My tears hit the ground, everything blurs. I look at the window and see the dead rising, the world ending, everything is hell. My tears run down my face, everything disappearing. I look at you and see the blood dripping from you, from the wound I inflicted. Everything is over. My tears disappear, everything ringing. I look at the ground and I see the world shakes. My finger touches the trigger. Everything goes black. Light. I see light everywhere. Nothing but light. Did I miss and hit my jaw? I did. Shaking. I see shaking everywhere. Blurring in blood. Am I dying now? I am. Darkness. I see darkness everywhere. Until nothing is left. Do I smile? I do. Good night, love. My time is done. Ever since this disease, and ever since the dead arose, I was done from the start. Good night, love. Your time is done. Ever since you nodded, and ever since I shot the gun, we were dead from the start. Good night, love. I'll see you again. Ever since you smiled at me, and ever since I heard you laugh, I loved you from the start. I'll see you soon. No better poem to kick off spooky season than a poem from H.P. Lovecraft, and the tough choices that have to be made when confronted with a zombie apocalypse. This is the benefit of being a ghost. Zombies can't bite a spooky motherfucker. While you run out of the pub, trying to avoid the hungry horde and their teeth, get back home so I can tell you the last story of the night. The main features for spooky season. This is Halloween Horror. For our first Halloween-themed story of spooky season, we find a husband and wife sitting around like normal on Halloween, hearing the knocks, giving out the candy, the usual. But when two children knock at the door, one of them being hurt, the night goes from being about pretend scares to very, very real ones. You may want to actually turn the lights on, get under your blanket, and definitely do not open your door as you listen to Eyes as Black as Night. The sound of another knock at our door woke me from my short nap. The clock read 8:17. Still another hour before they would all go home. I stood up and stretched. Then another knock came at our door. "Are you going to get that?" My wife groaned from across the room. Yes. I started to walk, but the pins and needles in my right leg almost stopped me. I opened the door to see it standing there, unblinking. "Trick or treat." This one was wearing a scream mask and was covered in black clothes. I dropped 2 chocolate bars into his large pumpkin-shaped basket. He said, "Thanks," and walked away. I closed the door and sat back down on the couch, hoping to maybe get some more shut-eye. Then came another knock. I got up quick, grabbed 2 more bars of chocolate from our bucket, and headed for the door. There were 2 of them this time. 2 girls, one dressed as a princess, the other as a fairy, typical for girls their age. I dropped 1 chocolate bar into each basket. They were about to say thank you, but I closed the door. I'll have more time to relax. Too bad if they think I'm rude. I began to relax again, but instead of napping, I thought about the day when Ann and I would have a kid. We would have to send him up to random strangers' front doors. Then they would give him candy, and I would. Then I heard another knock. I was too relaxed to even care this time. Let's convince them we're not home. Maybe they'll go away. Then they knocked again. I heard Ann groan loudly and get up, and she started for the door. "Honey, I can..." She stopped me mid-sentence with a simple, "Shut up," and continued walking. I heard the door open and the sound of candies dropping into baskets, then talking. This one was a little girl, and after a few seconds I heard Ann say, "Aw, poor baby." The girl clearly said, "Can I come in?" My wife responded with, "Sure, I think we have a few bandages." I sat up and the children, there was a boy following the girl, had come in as far as our boot rack. The girl had a green witch mask on, and the boy had a zombie mask. They had no costumes except for the masks, just plain clothes. My wife returned with the bandages. The girl held out her wrists, and Ann wrapped a bandage around the girl's small cut. The girl proceeded to slip off her mask and glare at me. "Nice. Contacts," was all I managed to say. Her eyes were as black as night, and her skin an oddly pale white. She just grinned at me, and I realized something felt off. Very off. "Honey, can I talk to you quickly in private?" She gave me an odd look, but still said sure. We walked into the kitchen and stood in front of the oven, where they could not hear us. Something's not right here. I decided to say what first came to my mind. "What?" Now she looked at me even more oddly. No response came to my mind. She just said, "You say that every time Dolores gives me cookies or a loaf of bread. Stop being paranoid." She walked off. Then I heard her gasp. I walked out slowly, only to see 2 masks and 2 buckets in place of 2 children. The buckets only had 2 pieces of candy each, the candy we gave them. Strange. I didn't even hear them leave. Maybe they didn't leave. She gave me that look again. Maybe they're in here somewhere, planning to steal something. Yeah, right. We don't even have anything worth. We both heard it. A scratching sound.